Welcome to Game Changers by Logitech G, a 6-part podcast for the ones taking the risks, breaking the mould and changing the game. I'll be talking to a variety of people in the gaming world about different topics, from diversity in gaming to its effect on mental health. I'm your host, Alan Boyston. Gaming is often seen by non-gamers as a damaging vice, with excessive gaming even being classified as a mental health disorder by the NHS. However, as reported by the Financial Times, games are actually powerful mediums for exploring and dealing with mental health through experiential storytelling. In today's episode, we'll be taking a look at how gaming is actually impacting the mental health epidemic, for better or worse. Today, I'm joined by game developer Claire Morley and Twitch streamer Sweet Anita. Welcome to the show today. Good to talk to you both. I think, Anita, I'd like to kick off with yourself. You suffer from acute Tourette's. And I'd like to tell our audience something about the sort of symptoms and some of the things that you experience along the way.
Well, there are loads of different kinds. Tourette's is diverse. So there are different kinds of tics, and tics are kind of like involuntary movements, and sometimes they are verbalizations as well. And I have lots of different kinds of tics, which is rare. There's a huge stereotype about my condition that we all swear a lot, but actually there's like motor tics, which are like involuntary movements in the body, and then there are like written tics called coprographia. A lot of people don't know about that, but I write the word narc on everything and ruin everything around me. And then there's the slightly more known coprolalia, which directly kind of translates to shit talking, which is basically the swearing, but it can also be words that are completely benign. I say kitten a lot. So everyone expects people like me to swear, and I'm probably going to disappoint 50% of the time. And a lot of people don't really understand my condition. A lot of people think that it's what you're thinking subconsciously and things like that. But really, it's just word salad, and I don't really know what's going to get tossed up at any point. So it's quite, obviously there's a lot of challenges to life, getting about, stuff like that. Is it worse when people are talking to you or when you're listening? You find your mind is sort of fuck off.
It's busy.
I find that when I have something to engage with and focus on, I tic a lot less. Like, it's a neurological disorder. Like, no amount of meditating or, like, yoga or anything is going to reduce it. So it's something physical going on with me. And it's interrupting my thoughts all the time. Like, a lot of people don't hear a lot of the word tics. A lot of them happen in my mind, and it's like I'm trying to focus. And it's kind of like if you were trying to tell someone your phone number, and someone was just shouting numbers at you. Like, it's really distracting and difficult to maintain focus and get to the point you're intending to.
Mm-hmm. So it's quite challenging, obviously, with day-to-day life and just getting yourself across to people meeting you for the first time, not understanding the condition until they get to know you better. Do you feel that through streaming that's been helpful in that way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people react quite negatively quite often because it's the internet. I'm cool with it, though. So a lot of people feel bad for laughing. I'm really cool with that one because I grew up without a diagnosis till my mid-20s. I presented with tics when I was about 1. So I didn't have an explanation for what was happening, and people were quite often offended or angry. And it kind of limited my access to education, a social life, and all sorts of things. And I can't drive. I have to take public transport. People react really angrily. I could get kicked off. I don't know what my journey to a place is going to be like, whether it's going to be safe, whether I'm going to get there. And frankly, with streaming, it's cool because when people are angry with me, they quite often clip my content, show it somewhere, complain about me, and then there's a really mature discussion in the comments section going, this is Tourette's syndrome, this is how it works. And that discussion has completely changed since 2 years ago when I first hit the scene with streaming. Nobody understood Tourette's in like the Twitch community and things like that. Yep. And the clips were causing outrage. Whoa! And then fuck off. And then now compare that to everyone's familiar with me in the community. People are calmly discussing Tourette's and what it is and what it isn't. And that discussion is reaching so much further than my channel ever would. I'm cool with the outrage, and I'm cool with people laughing too, because after people get mad at you for like 20-something years, having people laugh is amazing. People try so hard to be funny. Like, people train for like 30 years to be a comedian, and I passively make people laugh. Like, that's a gift compared to what it was before.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think in that sense, it's helped you as a communication tool in context. I mean, it's always a problem when it's out of context, and you're always going to get those who are a bit immature. They don't understand, and they need to get time to get to know you.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move on to video games then. You're here because you stream a lot of video games, and how did you? I guess in a way, I'd like to know where your initial passion for video games came from. You know, where how did games help you, and some of the initial titles that you
give me
started
an erection.
playing?
Well, they're helpful in other ways. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's all right.
For me, I mean, I've been playing games ever since I was really little, but it started changing my life when I found Overwatch on the PC. I was a console gamer before, but then my whole world opened up with Overwatch because people see my condition before they see me, and that changes how people interact with me. A lot of people who find me fascinating are like, oh, I'd love you to be my party trick. I'd love to take you to the club and have all my friends laugh at you while we're drunk and that sort of thing. And that's where people's minds go when they like me. But when I'm gaming and I'm on push to talk, when I lift my finger, all of a sudden people can't hear me. And that changed my world because now people meet me before my condition. And a lot of the mods who've been with me through my whole Twitch journey didn't know I had Tourette's until I started streaming. And that was amazing because you get self-conscious that people are defining you by your condition. Yeah. And when you know that you have social skills and people value who you are and laugh at what you say, even when you mean it, it can really give you a sense of self-worth you never had before. And it gave me access and it gave me a chance to really connect and develop the social skills I never got to develop. I was in isolation when I was younger.
Do you find that, I mean, it's interesting because really online gaming has given you the opportunity there. You've referred straight to going to online. I suppose I was always wondering whether offline gaming, because you're playing a story, you're engaging your mind in a different way, whether that was more helpful initially, because when you go online, the anxiety is that you are going to talk to people. You are going to speak to people who don't understand your condition. You're opening yourself up when you go online. So I guess that was the sort of surprise, I guess, that online gaming actually helped you in that way from the off.
I mean, well, there was, the focus is very relieving. It's so good to have things that give you a refuge from your condition, and the focus and engagement of like narrative-based stuff is definitely helpful. But another way it helps me is that I had limited access to education. I couldn't sit still, I couldn't behave. No one understood what was going on with me. So being alone at home, games taught me how to read, and I had like a really early reading age. Like I learned how to read really quickly because I was having so much fun as I went along. So it was definitely a learning tool for me in that respect. Inspired a lot of creative writing and stuff like that. Had me engaging with topics I never would have. So yeah, it was very educational growing up. I really am grateful that I had games as a kid.
Absolutely. Claire, moving on to yourself, tell us a bit about your background in sort of games, game development, and the creation of Freefall Games. You've created a game about dementia. We'll get to that in just a moment. But tell me first how you created your games company, how you got into it.
So with my company, Freefall Games, it was actually formed at the same time as the game Before I Forget was formed, because I was at a game jam, which is normally sort of a weekend or a few days where people get together and form teams and then spend normally a weekend making a game around a theme. So I met Shella, who's the other person in Freefall Games, at this game jam, and then we had the theme of borders to make a game with. So we decided to then take that and sorry, mine went blank. So using that theme of borders, then we developed Before I Forget from there. But that was the first time I'd met her, so that kind of all happened at the same time. But prior to that, I was mainly sort of doing freelance game work alongside my my job, and that it was kind of the creating Before I Forget that pushed me further into game development.
So Before I Forget, again about dementia, it's a tough subject to cover. Yeah. What kind of research did you do? How did you formulate a game design around that subject?
So initially it was Shella, so she's the narrative designer on the team, and she'd always been really interested in the concept of memory and sort of identity around memory, and then what happens if we lose our memory? Are we still sort of the same person that we once were, and things like that? And once we playtested a little bit and found that people were really connecting to the idea, we decided that we did need to sort of make sure we did our research and make sure the narrative was kind of consistent with what we were trying to show. So, because neither me or Shella had sort of direct experience with dementia, so we contacted a charity called Gaming the Mind, who are doctors who are interested in the how mental health is portrayed within games. So we've kind of had a couple of these people from that charity with us along on the journey, and they've sort of been playtesting the game as we make it, and then giving us feedback and saying sort of, oh, maybe the character might behave in this way when they're doing this, or might say this instead, and that kind of thing, which has been really helpful. And I think just through playtesting as well, when we've taken it to events and had people play it, we find that people are always really keen to talk afterwards about their experiences, and that's been, I mean, it's kind of amazing to see how much it does open the conversation, but also just really great in terms of us knowing that what we're portraying is kind of sensitive to the subject.
So what is the style of play then? What is this type of game? To explain before I forget to us.
So it's a first-person 3D narrative adventure. So you are seeing the world through the main character's eyes and walking around the house that she lives in, and you can sort of look at objects that she has, pick them up, and then afterwards she might sort of have a memory about them or a thought, perhaps not remember what it is. And so you're experiencing just her life in that sense. Yeah,
colour, sound, use of colour. It looks like watercolours sort of style to it. What do you artistically? Where do you find the place? Because I guess colour drains, and you have to try and obviously you forget things along the way, or how things are supposed to look. What's the inspiration behind that and the research?
Yeah, so the game starts in a sort of like this monochrome grey, black and white kind of setting, and then as you pick things up and she has a force about them, then colour spreads from that object, and you're kind of slowly filling in colour throughout the house. And so it's more of sort of a metaphor, I suppose, for representing these sort of connections and the memory, perhaps like coming back or perhaps not with certain objects.
Do you think it educates people? Do you think games can be educational? Do you think does it educate people on dementia, do you feel? Is that the objective?
So early on in development, we definitely were approached a few times about with people sort of saying, oh, this could be really good as an educational tool, or, you know, you could sort of give it to schools or to carers and sort of show people what the symptoms of dementia are, which I certainly think there is a place for, but it's not exactly the route that we wanted to go down. We more wanted to have a narrative that was about this person's life and just her life surrounding the illness, as well as focusing on how the illness was affecting her life. So I think it certainly can provide a kind of portrayal of an experience. And I suppose educate in that way.
I think educational is always a challenging thing, because you don't want to make it an educational game, because then nobody wants to play it.
Right.
In a way, they've got to play it and know it's a good game. I think games can be used in a way to sort of increase people's knowledge and educate them that way. Educate them in different ways around games, though, Anita. Yes. You have Mental Health Mondays. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, Bliss. Twitch is kind of this odd platform where lots of people gravitate towards streaming because it's a way to connect with another human being. If you have social anxiety or depression, you have struggles getting out of the house, or you have a lot of self-doubt and it's so hard for you to speak to people, having someone that you can have respond to you, but also just have, you know, them talking in the background, breaking up the silence, can be really impactful and helpful. And so you have a lot of people who struggle with mental health on Twitch, and when I first arrived I really noticed that, and there were a lot of streamers who were like being silly and bombastic, and that was really fun to watch, but they were not really focusing on the connection aspect of it. And a lot of these people are people who found Twitch because they had similar problems themselves, and I kind of wanted to encourage people to have a discussion about how they broke through it and how they navigate it. so many people in my chat were asking me how I decided to start streaming, how I can have the confidence to do it when I am the way I am. And I used to be depressed. I was depressed for 13 years. I had anxiety for a long time. And I am completely over it. I'm living a really happy life now. And it's those management techniques that people were really taking an interest in. So I wanted it to be about more than just me. I'm not really comfortable with just how much I have to talk about myself. So it was so good to bring other people in and, really engage and have a discussion and get more than just my input. We got together, we started talking, and more things, more topics, schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorders, and things like that were coming in to the discussion. And we were seeing people in chat be like, this is making me cry. Like, I needed to hear this today. Like, this gives me hope. This gives me hope that things are going to change. And, it was having such a profound effect on people. And when I started talking to the other large streamers on the platform, I had like some really surprising conversations from people saying that this is what the platform needed. And it's like so many people are pandering and kind of keeping people interested, but it's not really moving them forward. And it might sound counterproductive, but the point of Mental Health Monday was to get people off my stream and living life instead of having me break the silence,
Absolutely. Well, I think that's where, we've talked about at the beginning here, we mentioned game addiction and people getting addicted to games. And in a way, you still need that break away from it as well. And I always say to people, play everything in moderation, go away, have some hobbies, do some painting, do something else. But I just want to mention online. I mean, it's interesting that in a way, online was the most helpful thing for you, Anita, because for me, I always found that online produced different stress because you've got leaderboards, you've got trophies, you've got to be maybe to be a streamer, or there's a lot of pressure to be good at games as well. I mean, you want to play a video game and be relatively competent at it. I think that when you're playing online, you've immediately got the stress of leaderboards, competitions, esports, and stuff like that. Do you think that's a positive or a negative? I mean, your comments, that some people will just come in, never heard of you, and just watch you play games. Do you see that side to online gaming as well?
I think when people watch you play, there is so much pressure to be amazing at the game, to be a pro player. People expect if you're going to play the game, you're going to play it well. I'm trash, and I'm fine with being trash. And what I used to be much higher on those scoreboards before I started streaming, but I started using games to socialize, and that's how I found Twitch. That's how I found my community, and that's the part that I really enjoy, and that's the part that transformed my life. So when I play these games, I'm showing people passively how to make conversation with a stranger, how to have fun, how to look for the positives, how to stay chill, because for me the score isn't really what makes it fun, it's the connection, because that's something I really yearned for and didn't have in my life, and I know that's something absent from a lot of my viewers' lives as well. So I completely let it go. My motor tics when I'm distracted are really severe. I'm not going to aim well, it's going to fuck with my ability to play, and I'm fine with that. I'm really relaxed about the scoreboard, and when people pressure me to be brilliant at the game, I just laugh at them. I turn it into a joke, I turn it into a punchline, and carry on doing what I love.
I have the complete opposite. Sometimes I put myself under so much pressure, I get frustrated with my own performance sometimes. And I suppose I'm interested as well that you, away from the streaming aspect, just as a gamer, you met people online gaming. People might be playing online. They say, I don't have many people to talk to. I don't have many friends or many people that share my passion.
Well,
I think the question is, how do they meet people? How did you make your first friends online? For example, years ago, you used to have an open lobby. But now when you go into a lobby, everybody's in private chat. So there's hardly anyone there to speak to. It's quite hard. Do you think there are forums, or do you think having a social media profile sort of helps with that in some way?
So I know that, and I'm the kind of person who will pester and say, get out of private chat, come and hang out with me. I've got something to say to you, and people hop in, they dare, and I get them laughing, and I reel them out of that area of the game, because I won't stand for it, because that's the part that's fun for me. but also my Discord community. It has about 30,000 people in it now. It grew exponentially.
Yeah.
They're called the Fish Fisters. It's because of my Tics. And they named themselves. I can't take credit for that name. And they are a lot of people with Tourette's gravitate towards my stream and my community because they know everyone there knows what Tourette's is and is cool with it. Yeah. So there are lots of people with tics. There are lots of people who are struggling or lonely who dabble and lurk and watch in these channels, and they watch people talking to each other and being really casual and being really friendly, and they watch people in VC, and sometimes they might lurk in VC, and then like 5 months down the line they might speak in VC, and then they might go, do you want to maybe play a game? And they come out of their shell, and we have so many people who, when they first entered our community, were terribly afraid, and now they're really blossoming, and they're really charismatic, and they're really wonderful and interesting. So I've definitely used my Discord community as not a sort of promotional tool, but kind of a place to be really friendly and kind of bring people out of their shell, and kind of I create the content that I needed when I was alone. And I think that Discord is a big example of that. Now, with the Discord community, we have like really tight mods who are very invested in keeping it peaceful. We have 30,000 people and zero toxicity. It's wonderful. It's the perfect climate to find your feet socially. I'm constantly giving reminders in stream, and I know the people in the Discord are watching this together. And I'm saying, forgive people when they're socially awkward. Forgive people when they make mistakes. You know, you're going to make a mistake. No one gets through life perfectly. So if someone's failing socially, forgive them, and we'll forgive you when it's your turn to mess up. And, you know, these sorts of messages keep people together when they consider leaving, and, you know, they're just finding their feet and they're not, you know, coping well yet. And these kind of things are the way that I get people socialising through games.
Is there a particular age group that you appeal to? Would you find people from all backgrounds and age groups?
I try really hard not to appeal to teenagers and kids. It's hard though because my tics can get quite obscene, and slightly less mature people might find that appealing for reasons. But like the last thing I want to do is play something like Fortnite and have loads of moms ringing me up going, why is my kid offering to fist people now? So I try to appeal to adults. I try to appeal to lonely adults. I try to make sure that people know that I'm not here as a spectacle because of my condition. I'm here to pass on the tools it took ages to get, so that people don't have to spend a lot of time alone trying to find them themselves.
I mean, your success, I mean, dare I say, you'll get a lot of great comments. I mean, you've grown massively on Twitch, but you'll also get those people who are slightly jealous as well of your success as well. They won't believe your condition, or they don't know you personally, or they're just jealous in that way. And that's something you've had to deal with as well. Through life, you've had to develop a thicker skin, really, haven't you, in everything, I guess. But you're still a human being when it comes down to it. You know, it's just, there's only so much you can do, because I find that all of us that do streaming or stuff like that, there's a human being behind the camera at the end of the day.
Oh, I'm so grateful for the people who get mad at me, if I'm honest. They've been the greatest promotional tool I could have ever asked for, because so many people take my clips out of context, throw them out into the internet and evoke rage for attention. And people come and fling that back at me, and they're like, I came here because I was mad at you, but actually I kind of needed to hear that. So they stay, and as well, these really mature conversations are happening in chat about what Tourette's is and isn't from people who have heard of me. So it's not just helping me get out there, it's also helping people understand Tourette's. And I've noticed a change in the past few years with people knowing what Tourette's is and being able to identify it from a distance, which means that it's safer for me to take a train now and a bus, and still it's potluck and people might misunderstand, but it's getting progressively safer, and I get to be a part of that because people are mad at me. So I'm grateful for the rage, and I really, really don't mind, because most of these people ask me to explain myself, and I'm more than happy to do that.
Let's talk a little bit about video games then, because a lot of people now, they're passionate, they're following you and all that sort of stuff, and they're trying different games, but we want people to play games and enjoy them and find games that work for them. And I just wonder, different types of games in particular that you guys felt took you on different journeys yourself. Claire, for yourself, I mean, different games you've played that you found inspiring, that took you somewhere, that you felt, oh, that's a game with a great story. Because I think there's lots of games out there. There's big games, there's indie games. Games played in moderation are great. We love video games. Well, what's a couple there that you would say you found inspiring?
So personally, I don't play that many online games. Just sort of, not particularly for any reason. But so I actually find that I also play less games than I used to. I think like the more that I develop games, the less that I kind of play games in a way.
It's the same as YouTubers, by the way.
Really?
The more actually, the funny thing is that I found that the more YouTube videos I made, because it took so long to edit the video, I play the games less and less and less, and in the end I'm barely playing a game.
Yeah.
And people think you're playing games all day, but actually doing a ton of paperwork and video editing.
Yeah, and then by the time it gets to the evening, you're kind of like, oh, I just want to read a book.
Yes, exactly. Do something else with my life. No, but I guess to Anita, again with yourself, really, I guess I'd like to find out some of the games that take you. So I mean, games can take you to all kinds of places. They can make you zone out like movies. And I just wondered really, in terms of your own passion of video games, if there are games that you like to play. Obviously, there's games you like to stream. But if there are games you like to play, perhaps you don't like to stream or anything like that. And also, I think we do hear negatives about video games. I think there's lots of positives as well in terms of, like you say, we've talked about it today. I mean, look at the community you've built. Look at what you're doing now. Thanks to video gaming, thanks to bringing people together. Games are bringing people together, for better, for worse. And I think, like anything, it seems to be there needs to be some sort of moderation in how you play. But yeah, just for yourself, a couple of games that you felt that you've enjoyed playing away from the ones your viewers may be aware of.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's so many games like that I find relaxing or soothing. Growing up, especially like Final Fantasy IX really sticks out to me.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
See?
Yeah, that's what I played a lot of.
I loved the existential questions that one of the characters was asking, because at a time when you're alone and no one notices or cares what you're doing, and you become kind of invisible, thinking about why you exist and why you want to carry on living and what you want to do with your existence is a very important question and can really keep you persevering. And I thought a lot philosophically. I was nudged to question my existence. And I talk about that a lot on stream. And I encourage people to remember things like, we have suicidal people who come in. And I'm like, you're going to be dead for most of the existence of the universe. You've been dead for billions of years. You get a blink of existence to see, to smell, to hear. Don't waste it. And don't let the negative experiences kind of blind you to everything beautiful that's going on. And these sorts of things I go into a lot more detail about, but I won't wax about that for ages. But like those sorts of philosophies came from the prompting I had and the time alone I had with these games. I'm so grateful for the lessons they taught me and the questions they had me asking about life. And that's not something that an angry parent will see. A parent will go, why are you shut alone in the house? Get out and play. And they're not seeing necessarily all of the lessons and gifts that this art form is giving you.
So talking of game development, I'd just like to get back to yourself, Claire. We want to see more companies taking risks and producing games that help in mental health in different ways, that can bring different ideas to the fore. But I'm interested just again on, before I forget, in the sense of the style of game and why you've designed it in that way. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I think, so in terms of like portrayals of dementia in the media and stuff, I think there's a lot that you can read about what it is and what the symptoms are and that kind of thing from kind of an outside perspective. But I think there's less that you can read which is sort of more from the perspective of the person who is suffering. And we really wanted to sort of focus on that sort of first person personal perspective of it, so that the game sort of showed this I suppose a perspective of like what it's like when it's happening to you and how that might feel, which is why we have tried to be sensitive to the subject and sort of get advice from doctors and from talking with people who have relatives and or maybe are suffering themselves with dementia.
How do people feel when they play it?
It's definitely been like a variety of responses. So we've shown it at a few games events, and so most people I think tend to be quite grateful that we've made it, so they sort of come and say thank you for making it at the end.
Less than 3.
And there's definitely quite a lot of people that get quite emotional afterwards. So I remember one person that had to kind of go away and come back when he sort of had a bit of a cry afterwards, and then talked to us about it then, which was obviously it's quite like difficult to know how to feel about that, because I'm glad that it's had that kind of emotional impact, but obviously I don't know how to feel about the fact I've just made someone really sad, but then
but that's the same with a good film, isn't it? I mean, you can watch a good film and say, do you know, that's a brilliant film. I can't watch it again because it takes me to a place and I'll be a ball of tears or something. But it is a brilliant film, and you buy it and you put it on the shelf and you never watch it because you watch it and think, I'm just not emotionally ready for that today. But at the same time, it's important, and I think that if it is. It takes people on that emotional journey, then you're doing something right, and let's face it, it's a tough subject that many people have to deal with. We'd like to see more games that are educational, more games that try something new in terms of mental health or other areas, in terms of around health. Is there sort of government support for developers? Do you know what kind of support structure there is for developers? Is there groups where developers are talking amongst themselves? Perhaps people watching might want to start developing games in this area, might not know how to get started. Well, what kind of advice can you give them?
Yeah, there's definitely a few schemes for like funding, and then there's also a lot of people sort of approach publishers with a pitch for their game, maybe if it's just an idea, or perhaps like they've got an early prototype of the game, to try and get some kind of development support that way. I think one of the best things that you can do if you're interested in creating a game is to kind of seek out the local games community in your area, if there is one. Hopefully in the UK it tends to be quite good, and like a lot of the bigger cities there is some kind of games community, games hub, or if not, then online communities as well, a great place to go, and just to have that kind of support, whether it's just to kind of ask people about your ideas, or ask people for if they know of any funding opportunities, for feedback on various things. So I live in Bristol, and Bristol's got a really good games community there. So they have like monthly meetups where they'll have a couple of speakers and opportunities for people to play test each other's games and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that it's something that people pick up on. They find. I mean, you've obviously got shows such as Develop Progressed where people show off a lot of indie titles. BAFTA are always looking for opportunities to look for diversity in gaming, but also areas like this where it can be, informative. I use the word educational, but this is about making a fun video game people want to play, but also has some solid meaning to it.
It is really transformative to have art out there that humanizes us, because anyone can Google what Alzheimer's is, or Tourette's is, or any kind of disability or struggle, but it doesn't give you a sense of what it's like to manage that on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't really inform you of what that experience is like or what it really means. But also, like, when I heard you talking about it earlier, it sounded like you were focusing on this as an aspect of her rather than a plot device that she brings. It's who she is, but not all she is. And I think that's so important, because it's so easy to become the girl with Tourette's, but I am more than that. And it's games like that help people think of us as people with a thing rather than people who are a thing. Oh,
thank you, that's so good to hear. I think people are very quick to want to just like categorize everything, including people, into boxes, and like you say, like, this is the person with Tourette's or whatever they want to say. And I think it's just great to challenge that and to show that people are complex and they have many facets to them, and you can't just say one person is one thing. So that's great.
Yeah, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's about understanding, and I think that if you're doing anything, it's helping people understand various conditions in a better way. It's educating people, and I think ignorance is often the cause of many problems. I think if people just open their minds and listen for a moment and explore, then they can discover new things and learn new things along the way. So moving forward then, I guess, Claire, firstly, where would you like to see game development going in terms of exploring various mental health issues and what you could see on the market in the future? What would you like to see?
So I think recently there has been like a lot of a lot of positive movement towards having stories with that tackle like mental health issues within games, but I think that the breadth of narratives that video games portrays is still pretty narrow when you compare it to other mediums. And I think that one of the biggest ways of extending that is probably to like tackle the diversity within game developers and within the games industry. So I think currently the sort of ratio of like the gender balance and the like ethnicity balance within game developers is imbalanced, and so I think that for me, like, that's where I would want to see game development going, is to kind of tackle that as quickly as possible.
I mean, that's a two-part area, isn't it? Because on the one part you've got the game development and who's involved in the game development. The other part you've got who the games actually appeal to. And I suppose maybe you need games appealing to a wider sort of diverse range of people to inspire them, to get them to then become developers along the way as well. And you need the opportunity of the right education as well to be able to take you to that level. Anita, to yourself, I guess, I mean, a lot of your successes come from gaming, but also to social media and to Twitch and everything else, the way you communicate with your fans. Is there anything that you can't do that you'd like to see in the future?
Wow, get an erection. Or go, like, I would love to be asked more questions, and I would love for it to be signposted where I can ask questions myself. When I first started, I didn't know if Twitch was going to ban me because I was breaking their terms of service by having tics that were inappropriate, breaking their rules, and I thought I'll be banned in 2 weeks, but I'll have fun for now. And I stayed, and more people came, and I was like, really, this is happening now? Okay. But what I needed back then was someone to talk to directly who could have told me what the opinion was on me being there. But also, like, eventually Twitch were really great, and they did start talking to me, and they did ask me loads of really cool questions. I made loads of recommendations about how it might be easier for people like me to engage, but also it was nice to have a quick chance to slip it in there in a few meetings to actually talk about something other than my disability. Like, quite a lot of us want to contribute. We don't want to be tokens. We want to be people who have a voice in just a casual regard too. So sometimes I feel a little bit pigeonholed. People ask about my condition and all that sort of stuff, and they're being really accommodating and great. But I'd love an opportunity to just contribute as a streamer, as just a YouTuber, as someone who has experiences there that could apply to anyone too.
So, Claire, Anita, thank you very much for your time today. New episodes will be available every week, and if you've enjoyed this one, please make sure to subscribe on your app of choice and leave a review. Don't forget to follow Logitech on Twitter at LogitechGUK, Facebook LogitechG.UK, and Instagram at LogitechG. There you'll be able to learn more about the new Lightspeed wireless range that's now available. I'm Alan Boyston. See you next time.